Hey, what's up? This is Harry Wagner from Harry Situations. And as you might know, I'm a new parent. So it's become apparent to me that I shouldn't be spending as much money modifying my vehicles as I used to. Boring! As I was saying, there's diminishing returns when it comes to modifying your vehicle. Take, for instance, the brakes on my Tundra. Now, I spent 10 times as much as on the brakes on my last Tundra, and while it stops better, it doesn't stop 10 times better. You should just swapped in tons. They come with huge brakes right from the factory. It's true, 1-ton axles do have big brakes, but brakes are a package that all has to work together. So that involves not just the rotors and the calipers, but also the master cylinder, the brake booster, the proportioning valve. Even on the Ford, when the Super Duty axles were swapped in, the master cylinder and the Hydro Boost were also added in order to make a balanced system that would work safely. This truck is running 35-inch Nitto Terra Grappler G2s on it, but honestly, they took a lot more work to fit than the 33s that I ran on my old Tundra. If we're honest with each other, a 33-inch tire is the perfect size for not just a first-generation Tundra, but a Tacoma, a 4Runner. With a modest lift, you can fit this tire size. You don't need to immediately re-gear. The CV axle angles are pretty reasonable, and there's a lot of aftermarket support making this the most popular option. So this is a 285/75/18 on lightweight black Rhino wheels, so a metric 35. I really like the size, but it did take a fair amount of work. It would have been much easier to just fit a 33-inch Nitto tire. Now, I keep mentioning Nitto. This video is actually brought to you by Nitto Tires. If you like what we're doing here, please like and subscribe to the Driving Line YouTube channel. I mean, I like Nittos too, but if you weren't such a wimp, you'd run 40s on your daily driver. I'm not sure that it makes sense to run 40-inch tall tires on my daily driver. I bet you 40s make a lot of sense for my daily driver. I'm running 42-inch trail grapplers. That's the biggest tire Nitto makes. So anyway, back to diminishing returns. I see a lot of folks out there and they'll buy a Jeep Wrangler, a Toyota Tacoma, it's their first 4x4, and the Wrangler owners go right to coilovers and 1-ton axles. Or the Tacoma owners go right to a bed rack and a rooftop 10 and traction boards. And honestly, I think those Wrangler owners would probably be well served to get a set of 35s or 37s and run RCV axle shafts. The Tacoma owner could have a ground tent and go out and hit the trail, and they would do just fine. I've tested a lot of outdoor gear over the years, from rooftop tents to drawer systems, freezer fridges to scottles. And I'll be honest, in my experience, the simplest solution is often the best one. Not only is it less likely to leave you in a jam when you're out in the middle of nowhere and the newfangled thing doesn't work, but they just stand up to the test of time better than the fads do. So in this regard, my best advice to you would be, you don't need all of those things in order to get out. In fact, if you save some money, it can provide opportunities for more trips in the future. But you can't see a ground tent, and if you can't see it, what's the point of even having it on your truck? I mean, you can't see a locking differential either. Do you add those to your vehicles? I use a welder to lock my differentials. You want bang for the buck? That's as cheap as it gets. I mean, I guess it's good bang for the buck right up until the welds break loose and you waste everything in your differential and have to replace it. Or it's locked up all the time and you wear out those 42-inch trail grapplers. Those things can't be cheap. Blah, 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 blah. I prefer selectable lockers for anything I drive on the road. For those unfamiliar with these terms, an automatic locker is one in which each axle shaft will only turn as slowly as the ring gear, never slower. So an open differential just sends power to one tire or the other. Examples of automatic lockers are like a Detroit locker is a full replacement case, or a Lockrite is something that goes into your stock open carrier. Now, the downside to these are they're on all the time, but they're pretty bulletproof and they're simple. Now, selectable lockers, as the name implies, you can turn off and on. So these are the only thing offered from the factory with regards to lockers. So something like a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, a Bronco from Ford that has the Sasquatch package, or a TRD off-road Tacoma have a locking differential, and those are all selectable lockers. These are also available through the aftermarket from companies like ARB that makes the air locker that you can turn on. It'll lock both axles together when you're off-road and you need that traction. but you turn it off when you're on the road so you don't have any of the compromises associated with tire wear or scrubbing or anything like that. Now this truck, I've got a PowerTrax Grip Pro in the back. That's a limited slip, and it served me really well in a variety of terrain. I actually like it so much that I added them front and rear to my flat fender as well. Shocks are another place there's diminishing returns. On my last Tundra, I had a single 2.5-inch ADS shock at each corner, and that worked really well. But of course I wanted more. So on this truck, I've got a 2.5-inch coilover in the front, but I also have an auxiliary bypass shock. Now that required me to get rid of the sway bar, so then there's some trade-offs there. It's also quite a bit more expensive, and really I think a lot of, not just Tundras, but your Tacomas, your Wranglers, 4Runners, any of those sort of vehicles, I really think a 2.5 shock is a great compromise, best bang for the buck out there. A lot more performance than a 2-inch shock, but not as expensive as what I've done here. I run 3-inch bypass shocks on my truck. The important thing about shocks is that they stick up through the bed so everyone can see them. Well, that is one philosophy. Horsepower is another place that people get carried away. The best rock crawler that I had was a tracker that Jesse Haynes built, and that thing only had a 4-cylinder. It made 150 horsepower. The key to the tracker working so well was the lightweight. That vehicle only weighed 2,900 pounds, so it can get away with less horsepower. When you start to have more horsepower, now you're breaking downstream components. The transmission, the transfer case need to be bigger, the axles are bigger. You get bigger axles, you lose ground clearance, so now you want bigger tires, and it's just a never-ending cycle. So if you can keep everything light, you don't need a ton of horsepower. We actually made an entire video about this subject and the tracker that you can check out on the Driving Line YouTube channel. In my Tundra, I've left it completely stock underneath the hood. My last truck, when I sold it, it had 235,000 miles on it. It's still out there going strong. Original engine, original transmission, original transfer case. If you keep things stock, they will remain quite a bit more reliable. This truck got a 460 with Edelbrock heads and a roller cam. It makes over 500 horsepower, it can peel out, and it sounds awesome. Oh really? Well, what sort of mileage does it get? Well, it gets about 7 miles to the gallon, and it runs on premium, and it runs on liberal tiers. And has it been reliable for you? Well, I'm on my 3rd injection system, and it eats the distributor gear every 5,000 miles, but other than that, it's never left me stranded. Except for that one time, but we fixed it. At this point, I feel like you're making my argument for me. Oh hey, are those Beadlock wheels? Damn right they are. Trail Readies, 20-inch. Oh really? What did those cost? They're about $700 a piece. Ooh, spendy. Have you ever lost a bead before? You ever lost a tooth before, smart guy? Beadlock wheels certainly have their place. They are great when you are running single-digit air pressure, like in deep snow, in the sand, but they've become really popular, and I see a lot of applications where they're really not necessary, including my own. I run them on my Jeep, which I mainly use in the rocks. I never really air down below like 12 PSI. The disadvantages with a beadlock wheel, they cost more, they require more maintenance, and they're heavier than a traditional wheel. So unless you're losing beads on a regular basis, I don't recommend them. Moving on, lights are another example of diminishing returns. 50-inch light bars on everything. Just use self-tappers and put them right on the roof. I have a Baja Designs light bar on the front of this truck. I run their products on most of my vehicles, and I think the light output is great, the quality and reliability is great, but it all does come at a price. You could buy lights off of Amazon, they're nearly as bright, they hardly cost anything. Sure, they're not reliable, but that's why I use the self-tappers. You just untap it and throw it in the trash, put the new one on. See, I think you're starting to get my point about diminishing returns. Don't get me wrong, I love premium off-road products, but they come at a premium price. As you can see, I have a lot of inner conflict when it comes to modifying my vehicle. It's almost like there's a little devil and a little angel sitting on my shoulders. And that little devil wants me to turn everything I own into a clown car with coilover shocks and 1-ton axles. And the little angel wants me just to leave the vehicle stock and to spend more time with my family. They both agree I should run Nittos though, and who am I to argue with that? We have our differences, but if there's one thing we can agree on, it's that Nitto tires are awesome. There's a lot of products out there that offer great bang for the buck, and they won't break the bank. That leaves more money to go out and hit the trail and go on adventures. Let me know what your favorite bang for the buck off-road product is by commenting below.
Thanks for watching Driving Line. If you guys like this video, consider subscribing to our channel so you'll never miss any of the content we create here. Whether you're into trucks, Jeeps, imports, domestic vehicles, or anything in between, we are here to fuel your passion. So hit that subscribe button and we'll see you guys next time.